Welcome back to Jane Hawtin Live.
You're with Jane Hawtin Live, and we're asking, should a community be warned when a convicted child molester moves in? We're taking your calls at 1-800-510-JANE. My guests are Superintendent Bruce Elwood of the Hamilton Wentworth Regional Police and Karen McArthur, a defense lawyer. Joining us now from our affiliate station, Calgary 7, is Monica Rainey, who is formerly Executive Director of CASE, Citizens Against Child Exploitation. You may remember several years ago, Monica discovered her son's teacher was a convicted child sex offender and fought to have the teacher's license revoked. Since then, she's been campaigning for a national registry of child sex offenders. We're going to talk to her in just a moment, but first we're anxious to get to your phone calls, and we're going to talk to Donna, who's calling from Cape Breton. Hello, Donna.
Hi. First of all, I'm angrier than I can ever say at the comments of your lawyer. I work in correctional services, and I'm an RN. I have come in contact with a great many sex offenders and pedophiles. You can call them pedophiles or sex offenders or child molesters, whatever you want. I'm perplexed at the notion that a repeat offender would even be eligible for parole. I think after they commit the second offense, they should never be allowed out. I do believe that neighborhoods and communities should be informed if a sex offender or a child molester or pedophile is released into their neighborhoods. Basically, you are asking communities, and I'm a mother, I have grown children, but I also live in a neighborhood where there are young children. And you are basically, what they are basically asking us to do is to offer up our communities as experimental labs and our children as guinea pigs for yet another program to treat sex offenders.
Karen, is that what you're asking her to do? You're asking her to offer up the kids in the community?
Obviously not. As I said, Donna, at the outset, I'm not in favor of pedophilia and I'm not in favor of child molestation. But I am in favor of our state and our police forces respecting individual civil liberties.
Let's talk to Mike, who's calling from Brockville, Ontario. Hi, Mike.
Hi there. All I'd like to really say is my main problem with this is the fact that people are being judged after they've committed a crime. I'll grant that, but they're being judged on something that may be happening. And in each individual case, everything's different, so it's really hard to judge be so prejudiced against these offenders. Repeat offenders do go to jail. There's dangerous offenders laws in Canada. They go to jail for the rest of their lives until they're too old to commit any more crimes. I think that's the most important thing that hasn't been really discussed so far. I think it is a breach of civil liberties to publish the names of or let communities know, because it can affect that person's ability to rehabilitate themselves, because that's the way it has to be. And a national registry, that would almost destroy every other liberty that they would have. They wouldn't be able to get jobs. They wouldn't be able to perform in a social atmospheres.
Okay, Mike, I think we got it. And Karen, you're nodding your head in agreement.
I totally agree.
But Monica Rainey is shaking her head saying, no, that's not the case at all. But Monica, there are some people who are concerned that a child abuse registry is going to take away rights, that it's kind of saying, prove to me that you're not going to beat your wife, prove to me that you are not going to sexually abuse a child. And, how can someone ever prove that?
The reality is this is a multi-level problem, and we're trying to identify all sex offenders, pedophiles, child molesters in one category. We're also misunderstanding accountability and the kind of registry that I'm talking about. I have visited prisoners in jail. I am very supportive of treatment. I believe without treatment there is no hope, and that in fact these people are going to reoffend. And when you talk about the rights of pedophiles, you've got to talk about their right to be protected from their addiction, because it is an addiction. I do believe in rehabilitation. I believe that because of the recidivism rate, and I certainly don't agree with your caller that says repeat sex offenders go to jail and go to jail for life. I in fact have thousands of documented cases of repeat sex offenders who serve no jail time. They do not pay their debt to society, they do not have to take treatment, and they do reoffend. The kind of registry that I'm talking about is one that could be accessed by organizations and volunteer groups, churches, child care societies, coaches, sports groups, to check their criminal record. We are placing convicted sex offenders with our children in positions of trust all over Canada from coast to coast. And I have
Isn't it reasonable to deprive a convicted pedophile of that kind of access to children?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Let's take an example of a drunk driver. I mean, if someone is caught for drunk driving, you could potentially take away their license for life. Isn't it the same kind of thing? All right, you've twice been caught. You've been twice caught molesting children. You don't have the right to be around children anymore.
I think you can.
Hang on just a second, Monica.
I think you can develop measured responses to deal with a problem that is proven over the long term. The issue is, where do you do the line drawing? Do you say you throw them into jail and lock them up for the rest of their life after they've committed one offense, and because you have a fear that they may commit a second offense? Or do you put them on the National Registry simply because someone has alleged that they have sexually abused someone? Or do you only put them on the Sexual Abuse Registry after they've committed the crime and been convicted of the crime 2 or 3 times? And how do you classify sexual offenses? Do we just put those in there who have been convicted of sexual offenses against children? Or do you put people on that registry who have been convicted of sexual offenses against adult persons? Where do you do the line drawing?
Monica, where do you draw the lines here?
I believe very specifically, at this point in time, we need something. Right now, we have nothing. And that for anyone who sexually assaults a young person under the age of 18, I believe convictions are critical, but many of these people may have only one conviction and may have hundreds of separate sexual assaults, but there's plea bargains that take place. Those do not show up on the record. And I have talked to treated pedophiles who support and agree with my recommendations. They know that the only way they're going to keep from reoffending is to stay out of high-risk positions. When they have an age of preference, that is a high-risk position. There is no way that a drunk driver always has a victim. Someone who falls off the wagon who's a convicted sex offender, there's always a victim and it's always a child. Whose civil liberties are at stake here?
Let's talk to Linda, who's calling from Edmonton. Hi, Linda.
Hi, Jane.
You want to get in on this conversation?
Sure. Yeah, we had a child molester identified here in our community, and along with his address. And the community just acted awful. It was like complete chaos in this neighborhood. They're throwing eggs at this guy's house, picketing it, yelling obscenities on their way by. And, I mean, the guy was chased out of the neighborhood, and now he's living in B.C. You know, I don't know what's happened to him in B.C., but they also identified where he's living there.
Now, was this the offender who came back and was living with his mother? Is that?
Yes.
Is that the one? And so what, you were ashamed by the way your community behaved?
Yes. I mean, how can you let the community know this when all they're going to do is just chase them out? I mean, it should be just for their own knowledge and their own protection. But no, they didn't want him there.
Well, Bruce, isn't this what the concern that has been expressed, and now police would be participating in that kind of vigilanteism?
Well, that was our concern, obviously. Whenever you release this information, your first concern is that this is how the community is going to react. What I was surprised at in Hamilton, in the first case that we released the information, the community actually got behind the offender and put in supports of their own, including to not only protect him from the community or from any vigilante action, but also to protect the community should this person attempt to molest a child.
Like what?
We had a community group that got together. We have some of them that they've given their phone numbers to him. He calls them throughout the evening if he feels like he wants to talk to somebody. We linked him, or he linked himself with the community through a church group, a church organization that has supported him and helped him not only get back into society very slowly, and helped him to handle any problem that he seems to have come up with. And the community has reacted very well.
Is that kind of intervention okay?
I think the measured responses that Bruce is now speaking of are something that should be welcomed and are far more appropriate as a way to deal with it than simply taking out an ad in the newspaper and saying, community beware.
Right, and
there's a pervert on the loose.
Well, that's certainly not what we're seeing across the country. We're not seeing a measured response. We're seeing people picketing. We're seeing people throwing eggs. We're seeing people walking back and forth outside someone's house saying, you know, you pervert, get out of our neighborhood. But we want to also hear how people feel about this, because it seems like there's a lot of willingness to go that far, to have that kind of abuse of someone's rights, if I can use your words, Karen.
And Monica's very correct when she's talking about the registry, and each province at this point are handling that differently. For example, in Ontario...
Okay, and we'll talk about that when we come back. Superintendent Bruce Elwood of the Hamilton Wentworth Police, defense lawyer Karen McArthur, and Monica Rainey of Case Citizens Against Child Exploitation. We're talking about what do we do with the pedophiles who move into our neighborhoods. Do those communities have the right to know that the pedophile is there? Do they have the right to try and drive him out of the neighborhood?